Hey guys, it's Chris and I'm back with another Star Wars video, and The Mandalorian has now dropped on Disney+. A pleasant surprise to say the least for it to come out tonight. I've already watched episode 1 called Chapter 1. So it came out a little earlier than expected, but anyway, I'm glad it did because I watched the first episode and I gotta say, I'm really digging it so far. This could be a really good character-based show. All right, let's jump right in. But first, let me quickly say this video is brought to you by my wonderful Patreons. I really appreciate the support, you guys. You guys keep this channel afloat as we try to figure out this new YouTube algorithm. All right, so The Mandalorian Season 1, Episode 1 called Chapter 1. Really good overall. Let me just start off by saying it was really good. I dug it. It did its job in introducing some characters and all that good stuff, and it really felt like Star Wars. I said this in my preview video that I put out last week that I don't think anybody actually saw, but it's already dipping into some of that lore, and that's what I put that video out for, because it gives you some of the backstory on the Mandalorians. Although some of that is considered expanded universe or legends, Disney has the right to pull that out and make it canon again, so this will be canon. They've already referenced stuff like the Beskar steel, so I thought that was really cool, it being a pivotal point in this first episode, kind of already dipping into the Mandalorian lore of the Star Wars universe, as I mentioned in that preview video. By the way, even if you've seen episode 1 already and you dug that episode, go ahead and check out that video as well, because it dives into a little bit more of Mandalorian history and some lore. So if you're not a hardcore Star Wars fan, it'll help you kind of understand some of the backstory and references in Mandalorian lore that you'll see throughout this show, I'm sure. So I'll link that in the video description below, and I also have that pop up as a card right over here. So anyway, yes, it opened up in the little cantina bar scene, really cool, really brought you back to Star Wars, you know, and the famous cantina scene in A New Hope. And this opening scene did exactly what it's supposed to do. It established him as a character. He's very quiet. He's just to the point. He does his job. He's a badass. Not that much of a badass, like overly done, which I really dug about it, because there were some scenes where he had some issues. So he's not like on the level of a Jedi or Sith or somebody that's Force sensitive, but he's really a cool character. And he is played by Pedro Pascal, by the way, from Game of Thrones fame, who played the Red Viper of Dorne, if you're not familiar. But he finds his first bounty and takes care of a couple assholes in the bar. He takes that bounty away, and I really love the line when he said, "I can take you hot or cold." And this guy was just like, yeah, I can't mess with you. You're a Mandalorian. So it's already establishing that Mandalorians are a thing of legend. People hear about them, but they rarely see them. And that's referenced a few times throughout this first episode. So that's really cool that they're dipping into this Mandalorian lore of just how badass they are. And as I mentioned before about the Beskar iron, as far as the Mandalorian history, that was actually mentioned in that bar scene by one of the bad guys. He came over to the Mandalorian and said, "Is that Beskar armor?" and scraped his blade across the chest plate of his armor and confirmed it was. And that comes into play later on as far as Beskar. And that was a big thing, as I mentioned in that previous preview video. That iron was actually mined by the Empire after a war with the Jedi that the Mandalorians had. It left them open for siege, and the Empire took the planet over called Mandalore, and they mined that because it is lightsaber resistant. So that's going to come into play, I believe. So really cool they referenced that right in the first scene. I really dug that he took his bounty, ended up having to freeze him in carbonite, so I guess that procedure is now a verified and safe procedure, because he had 4 or 5 other bounties on his ship, which is really cool, and then he went to deliver those guys to the character that Carl Weathers plays. He is the leader of this Bounty Hunters Guild, which is a big thing in the Star Wars universe. And I really dug the little bounty pucks. This is what they hand out at the guild to these bounty hunters, where they look like little tiny hockey pucks where a little hologram comes out and displays the face and name of the bounty they're looking for. I thought that was really cool. A couple times it was mentioned that Mandalorians never take off their helmet, so again, they're referencing some of that lore, and that's really cool. And throughout this whole thing, Pedro Pascal did really good, because you're trying to picture what's going on as far as his facial expressions, but he just has that helmet on, and they never take the helmet off, or very rarely, I should say, and that's a Mandalorian thing in the lore as well. Really cool that they referenced that. So this entire time, he didn't have very many lines, but what he said it on point, and it made sense, and it started to show his character a little bit. So he is not just some cold-hearted badass where he doesn't talk to anybody. So I'm really hoping this show continues on this path for a character-based show that feels like Star Wars. It looks like Star Wars. It's gritty. Think about it like a space western, but you don't even have to be a real Star Wars fan to appreciate it if they continue down this path as a character-driven show. There were a lot of great Easter eggs in this show already, I could tell. I need to go back and watch it again, because this was about 42 minutes long and I didn't catch them all whatsoever. I did see a few here and there, but I'll go back in and watch it again and make sure we talk about that on the live stream. And we'll do a live stream maybe sometime this week, or at least Sunday. We're going to start doing them every Sunday, because from this point on, these will come on Fridays. So we have an episode 2 this Friday, and then the following Friday after that, we'll have episode 3, etc. So then we'll start doing live streams on Sundays. But I did see one I thought was pretty interesting. You saw a lot of the famous races throughout Star Wars, as far as the original Cantina scene, and all these other races that you've seen throughout the Star Wars universe. Some are Jedi that you may know, some are just regular characters that you see in the background. And I really dug IG-11. If you remember the famous bounty hunter IG-88, he was a droid bounty hunter. When Darth Vader back in Empire Strikes Back put all the bounty hunters on the bridge of the Star Destroyer, Boba Fett, of course, was there, along with IG-88, Bosk, and all these other bounty hunters. So we saw an IG model that the Mandalorian actually worked with for a few minutes. And then we discover at the end a pretty interesting little twist that I think may tie back into the original series, or at least the movies in general, because you find out a pretty cool surprise at the end, and we'll get to that in just a second and talk about possibly some of those implications. I really dug seeing him kind of go to his home base of operations. They had the Mandalorian symbol that you see on Boba Fett's armor as well, and then you saw other Mandalorians working around, and they never took their helmets off, and he took that piece of Beskar that he received as a down payment for this bounty, and he had it made into a shoulder plate, which is an honorary thing for the Mandalorians. They'll start giving us names soon enough as far as some of the character names, but she actually mentioned the clans and the family, so it is definitely going into Mandalorian history and lore. So I don't know exactly where that was. I don't think it was Mandalore itself, but during that scene when she is actually making that shoulder pad, he did have flashbacks to him being a child on Mandalore, and that's going to be during the Great Purge, I believe. And that was after, as I mentioned before, they had this war with the Jedi, and then the Empire comes in and takes over and starts mining for this Beskar. So we're going to see a lot more about his backstory, his history, his family, his clan for that matter. So I'm really, really looking forward to it. It showed that he wasn't just a perfect badass where he could handle everything with these, you know, kind of piranha / T-Rex looking creatures that he learned to ride. So I thought it was cool. But they are definitely doing this movie style. They're putting in the money, obviously, because they have no problem with money. They own the damn world. It's definitely Star Wars. It's definitely the universe, at least so far. So I hope they continue that, and I'm sure they will. But to get to this last little thing that I was actually surprised by, that I think may tie into some of the backstories and movies, this last big bounty that he goes on and actually finds at the end is a baby version of Yoda. And I'm not saying Yoda himself, I'm saying the species that Yoda is. Remember, Yoda's species is an unknown species. It has yet to be named in the Star Wars universe, and I'm actually glad they kept it that way and didn't come up with some random species name for Yoda's species, and that was the actual bounty. Now, what's interesting is the Mandalorian got specific orders from this former Imperial Moff to not kill this bounty. They had to have it alive, but IG-11 had the same bounty for some reason and said his orders were to bring it in dead only. So that shows you there's already a conflict going on, and I'm wondering if this ties back to Yoda himself, maybe the old Jedi Order. So the Empire's pretty much decimated except for pockets here and there, way before the First Order ever comes to power in The Force Awakens. So I'm really wondering what they're doing with this baby Yoda character, and I really look forward to seeing what that is. So really cool first episode. Again, I thought it was pretty good. It did its job. It had a really good balance of action where you saw how he's going to fight this cowboy style Western stuff, as I mentioned before, as well as some dialogue enough to kind of get you going and kind of get you familiar with the setting and the characters and stuff like that. So really good so far. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Really digging it so far. And again, we'll keep doing these videos right after The Mandalorian comes on Fridays. For this first one, let me know in the comments below if you want to do a live stream. Maybe we will do one on Wednesday on YouTube to make up for this first episode. So that way, next Sunday, we can focus on episode 2. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. And as usual, thank you for all the support, especially to you guys on Patreon. And a huge shout out to my executive Patreon SmokeScreen producers. And if you dig what I do here, please give these videos a like, comment, and a share. And of course, be sure to subscribe to get everything and click that notification bell twice so you're notified when I drop a new video. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.